Try to go for doctor, engineer, and more than that, we also, the first preference is to become service, IPS, IAS, IRS kind of thing. And today I learned that Swamiji was an IPS officer, and when his dad said more than IPS, if it was IAS we could have served better, then he chose this path. And God has given us such a wonderful gentleman, Swamiji, and Swamiji, we welcome you. I would request Vaidyanathanji to introduce Swamiji.
Okay.
May I welcome Swamiji to
That is very well written.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Yes.
That halanta of the ka
Yes.
should be shifted to ma.
Ma. Okay.
That ka, like that line is there.
Ah.
That should come to ma.
Ma,
Kutu.
okay.
That is all you have to do.
Thank you.
That will be very nice. Yeah, I will take care. Please don't mind. Okay. Please don't mind. Please do not mind my swing. Yeah, you have to correct that. Yeah, that has to be sure.
It's on. Okay. Sure. Okay. Good evening. I've been given some generous amount of time to introduce Swamiji, so
Okay.
I'm hoping I will do justice. I have some details also to give, things that I never would have spoken of earlier. Without giving some dates, I'm going to give some details too in today's introduction. So every time the last 3-4 years introducing Swamiji is falling upon my head, I always start with this line: I have to introduce someone in whose glory I am myself basking. So it's a kind of a paradoxical thing to do, but anyway, it is my great honor and it is a blessing that I am having to speak about him today. So Swamiji was born to one of the most illustrious scholar of Vedanta of his times. Most of the scholars of Advaita Vedanta you find in southern India today were all students of Swamiji's father. His name was, and he was given the title Advaita Siddhi Ratnakara. So Advaita Siddhi Ratnakara, Rani Narasimha Shastri Garu, and his mother, Swamiji says, I have learnt all the texts of Vedanta from my father, and I have learnt Vedanta from my mother. And that great lady was Rani Sitama Garu. To those parents, he was born in Andhra Pradesh, and he had the blessed opportunity of learning various multidisciplinarily learning under some of the greats of his time. For example, Krishna Yajurveda he studied under Brahmashri Kompella Kameshwara Ghanapati Garu, who was a great authority on the Vedas himself, and that has so something that we don't often get to see Swamiji do in public is teach Vedic chanting. As a student of his who has learned that too under him, I have seen how even at this age his padapatha breaking, his krama breaking is so intact. When he would teach the Rudram, elaborate sentences, he would break with swara, which is not something that everybody can do unless you have learnt Veda in a perfect sense. So I remember once I had to learn some mantras from him for which I didn't find swara. I just wrote down the text and gave him. He marked the swara and gave it to me. That is how his knowledge of swara is also still so intact. So that is about his study under Kompella Kameshwara Ghanapati Garu. Then he studied Vyakaranam and Sanskrit Kavyas under Kompella Subbaraya Shastri Garu, who was considered to be Abhinava Panini, a great authority on Panini's Ashtadhyayi. And he was also a President Award winner. Both his father and Subbaraya Shastri Garu were President Award winners for their contributions to Sanskrit. And Swamiji also parallelly had a secular, quote unquote, secular education. He did a BSc first in Andhra University. He had a BSc degree. Then he went on to do a master's also, and his majors was in chemistry. And that is how he ended up working for Indian Drugs and Pharmaceutical Limited, which is the forerunner for most of the pharma industries in and around Hyderabad, which are the leading pharma industries of the country too. So he had a very successful career in IDPL as a scientist. He also parallelly was studying Vedanta under his father. I once asked him, what is the first book you studied under your father? Something all of us have to learn. He said, the first book I studied was Shabdamanjari under his father as a child. And then, of course, I then asked him, what is the first Vedanta book you studied? He said, Gita Bhashyam is the first I studied under his father. So those were also going on parallelly along with his career as a scientist, his studies in the university and all that. And then eventually, while he was working, he ended up doing PhD in synthetic organic chemistry under another great professor who was awarded Padma Bhushan Dr. Sukhdev, who incidentally just passed away last year in October at the age of 101. So he was a distinguished scholar in that field of synthetic organic chemistry. Swamiji's PhD thesis was titled Studies in Synthetic Organic Methods, and this is from Malti Chem Research Center in MS University Baroda, which was then and even now a top university for research in synthetic chemistry. And then Swamiji subsequently, as even his life in, I'm giving all this introduction because there are a few people, many people who haven't seen or maybe heard of Swamiji earlier. Many of us must be knowing this already. He also had a second, he is not one to take praise easily, so it's very inconvenient for him to listen to all this, but for the sake of all of us I am putting all these out. He had a second PhD in Sanskrit, and not far from his scientific training, the second PhD was in Sanskrit, but the title is Studies in Krishna Yajurveda. This was under Professor Gopal Reddy Garu, if I am right, his PhD supervisor there, who was also in Usmania University. The Sanskrit department did great contributions also. And his PhD thesis was suggested to be published as a book, which in his Purvashrama he did publish as a book called Science in Krishna Yajurveda, with very critical analysis of certain portions of Krishna Yajurveda, Sayana Bhashyam and all that. Two important chapters in this thesis was Krishna Yajurveda and Solar Sciences, Krishna Yajurveda and Ethnopharmacology, not far from his scientific career itself. And he also takes great personal interest in English literature and world history, notably World War II history. People who have heard him know that he can quote battles in the war, battle generals, dates and those strategies all accurately from memory. It is something amazing. And with so much ease, he also quotes great literary works in English also, like example Shakespeare, Wordsworth and all that we often hear from him. So he also had the blessed opportunity to meet Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji, under whom he eventually quit his job and took sannyasa under him. So Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati Ji, whom we call as Pujya Swami Ji, was the founder of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam with three main centers, one here in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania, and two in India, one in Rishikesh and the other in Coimbatore. So Swamiji is also currently the vice president of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam in Saylorsburg. And he has about more than 100 books, I suppose, to his credit, and some of them have been really highly acclaimed, of which in my as far as my knowledge goes, he is the only author who has translated all the 10 Upanishad Bhashyams of Shankara into English, and who has also done Gita Bhashyam translation and Chatussutri Bhashyam translation of Brahma Sutras. And I once again take this opportunity to fervently pray to him that he does the remaining portion of Shankara Bhashyam of Brahma Sutras too. Let us hope. And then some of his lesser known books, like he has, every time he critiques Puranas, criticizes I would like to say, but critiques Puranas, it's coming from great authority. He has also translated Srimad Bhagavatam into Telugu, Shiva Puranam also into Telugu. So you know when he critiques something, it's coming from great authority. And some of his English books, Saddarshanam, which is relatively recent, but is considered, I personally consider it as his magnum opus. It runs into about 700 pages. And then finally there are a pack of 3 books which I call the Essential Swami TV pack of 3 books. One is The Vision of Karma Yoga, then Inner Growth Through Devotion, which is Bhakti Yoga, and Advaita Makaranda, which is Jnana. These 3 I consider the Essential Swami TV pack. And then there are, recently he is bringing out a lot of small booklets for our recent times where the attention span is too short. he has small booklets coming out now, some of which we have there for you to pick up, and one of those booklets is Sri Rama Jayam, which we are going to talk about. He has them separately in English and Telugu, and Swamiji's love for Srimad Ramayanam of Valmiki. Ramayanam means Ramayanam of Valmiki only. So Ramayanam of Valmiki is seen all through in his classes whenever he speaks, and it is that love, notably for Sundarakanda, I suppose, which he often talks about, that has fructified into the small booklet called Sri Rama Jayam. So while I conclude, I have a few lines to read, which I often say about Swamiji. I thought it's better I just read them as it is. It is difficult to speak about Swamiji because his trademark is his simplicity. He is so simple in his living and dealings that any description of it fails to capture its spirit. Two traits of his that one gets to see when we observe him from close quarters is that everybody who comes in contact with him feels like this person considers me the closest of all people, and everyone, even if you have a brief interaction with him, goes back with that feeling. But if you look a little more deeper, you would see that actually he is in the state of samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshyosti na priyaha. Equal love towards all people means equal disinterest towards all people also, or equal disinterest towards all people means equal love towards all people also. That is the state in which Swamiji is. So I often say I have never met any other person who is as highly learned and yet as humble, approachable and completely dispassionate as him, and that is Swami TV for you. I have a lot more to say, but I will quit because he is punctual in his dealings and it is 5:59. Over to Swamiji. Thank you.
We thought of meditation for a few minutes. Then is there a way to shut off the lights if possible? Guided meditation. Pause. Good. That is nice. Sit upright. Stretch the backbone up as well as you can. That is how you sit upright. At the same time, keep the hands and the shoulders relaxed. Keep the eyes partially closed. Don't press the eyelids down. Keep a smile on the lips. Now, if you notice, if you look at yourself, you can see that you are already in meditation because the body is upright, alert, and the mind is naturally quiet, without any force or control from your side. By itself, the mind is quiet. That is the state of meditation already. Now, you chant. First listen before you start. You chant the sacred name of Sri Rama. Not Sri Ram. It is an address. So it is Sri Rama. In the heart, not in the head. You would do it mentally, not verbally here. Maybe at home you may do verbally.
in a whispering tone, not loudly. Loudly will not be meditation, it will be some other discipline. Therefore, either whispering tones at home, but at present you will chant the sacred name Sri Rama in the heart. But then you should understand the chant well. Sri Rama is an address. O Rama, that is what the address is. You are addressing the Lord, Rama. Rama in your heart. In meditation, Rama is in your heart. In other words, it is Atma Rama. That is the Rama you are addressing as Sri Rama. Now you may start the chant with adequate space between two successive chants. I chant loud, you chant mentally in the heart, not in the head. Now, Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama. To continue, no need to count. Every single time you chant with the freshness of the present moment, as though it is the very first time that you are chanting. Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama. The word Rama means the Ananda, the bliss in the heart. That is the meaning of the word Rama. Shri is the beauty, not physical, the spiritual beauty. That is Shri. The spiritual beauty associated with the Ananda in the heart is the God. That is the Lord Rama in the heart. And we are chanting that sacred name. That is the meaning. You should chant verbally or mentally Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama. You should know the meaning also at the same time as just now I have described. Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama. And you should feel the love for the Lord Rama in the heart. Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama. It is not my chant. It is the pure chant without any association with me and mine. Only chant is there. No person. The person surrenders to the sacred name. Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama. You chant last 3 times. Sri Rama, Sri Rama, Sri Rama, and merge in the ensuing silence. Now visualize the solar orb, Surya Mandala, in which the Lord is shining, the Lord of the universe is shining the most brilliantly, illuminating the entire solar system with light and filling the entire solar system with energy, heat, etc., making life possible on this globe, illuminating every particle of this universe with light, the Lord in the solar orb, everything shines in that light, everything of this universe shines in that light, which is the Lord in the solar orb, and the same Lord shines in this body mind, in the heart, as Atma Rama. The Rama, none other than the innermost self, Atma Rama. The same Lord is shining in this body mind as Atma Rama, enabling the eyes to see, the ears to hear, the mind to think, the legs to walk, the hands to hold the things, the organ of speech to speak. Thus, rejuvenating this entire body mind, the same Lord. This is the essence of Gayatri Mantra, and I visualize the Lord Ishvara in the solar orb as well as in the heart, and I surrender all of my personality, including ambitions, anxieties, sorrows, etc., to the Lord Ishvara, shining brilliantly in the solar orb as well as in the heart at the same time. Sit at ease, relax, and open the eyes slowly.
Swami, wait for 2 minutes. There are some streaming problems.
That is meditation. There was some request coming from somebody to do a small guided meditation. Please pay attention to this meditation. It should help you overcome any sorrow or anxiety, etc., that can be there in the head. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Vedhase रघुनाथाय नाथाय सीताया पतये नमः। कूजन्तं राम रामेति मधुरं मधुराक्षरम् आरुह्य कविता शाखां वन्दे वाल्मीकिकोकिलम्। मनोजवं मारुततुल्यवेगं जितेन्द्रियं बुद्धिमतां वरिष्ठं वातात्मजं वानरयूथमुख्यं श्रीरामदूतं शिरसा नमामि. It is not that I am reciting some verses for myself and you do not know anything about those verses. It should not be like that. These verses are so simple, and the way I recite them, if only you pay attention, you will understand what is being said. Having said that, I am very grateful to the temple people, the president, who has kindly invited this Swami. You have a majestically built temple here. I am seeing it for the first time. Though I have been coming to Phoenix for a few years now, but I had this great fortune to come and visit this majestic temple for the first time today. And so thank you for your kind invitation, and also to the friends who made this visit possible. And it is a relatively simple temple that I can see. And you have a good team of priests, that also I can see. You may wonder, when did I see all this? I have heard the priests, at least 3 of them I have heard, when they offered the Purna Kumbha and all that. And I could tell. So, you have a beautiful temple, and there is a hall also where you can use this hall for learning a few things. Temple used to be at one time a center of a place of worship, not only a place of worship, but also a center of learning, and also a place where some ill health is treated by a Vaidya. So 3 things were there in the temple: worship, learning, and chikitsa, means treatment for any small time illness. So now that may not be practical, that may not be needed also. You have some of the best possible Medicare systems and all that in this great city, Phoenix of Arizona, in the USA. So, but the other 2, the place of worship and the seat of learning, they should go together. That will be very nice. I'm sure you must be doing some such thing. That's why I'm sitting here. And I'm very happy about Sri Vaidyanathan introducing and bringing some nostalgic memories to my mind. Generally, there is a thing called psychological death to the past. There is such a thing, which I discuss in the Vedanta class. So it may sound a bit odd to some of you, but there is such a thing. And therefore, the past is in some corner of the brain cells. Whereas my friend Vaidyanathan brought out some of those things, nostalgic memories. Today's topic is called Vijaya Mantraha. That is the topic. 4 verses. It is mantra, means the secret. That is the meaning of mantra. Mantra need not be some unknown esoteric set of words. Need not be like that. Mantra. So, Gupta Paribhashana, that is the meaning of the word mantra. Something secret. The secret of success. Vijaya is success. The secret of success in life. You see, we go to colleges and universities, earn degrees, and then get good opportunities to come to this land of opportunity, practice a profession, make a lot of money. That doesn't make us successful in life automatically. Sometimes after all of this, people find themselves in sorrow, anxiety, insecurity, etc. And you have to find a way to come out of that sorrow and anxiety. You have to find it. It won't come and land in your lap by itself. And performing a few rituals here and there is also not going to resolve that human predicament with which people live. Therefore, you have to find a solution to the problems of samsara. This is what is called samsara. Means a life of inexorable cycle of pleasure and pain. That is the samsara. A definition for samsara. Samsara is equal to an inexorable cycle of pleasure and pain. That is the samsara definition. The mind oscillating constantly between pleasure and pain. One day party, next day crying. So it goes on, mind goes on, oscillates like that. That is the samsara. And nobody is an exception. People feel that their suffering is unique. No, suffering is all the same. And nobody is an exception. And therefore, you have to discover, explore and discover a way out of the melody or the malaise of the worldly life. You have to discover the way out. And the secret of such, that is the real success. Having acquired worldly success, you should be able to live with peace and happiness in the heart. That is the real success. Outward success is not much valuable. It doesn't matter. One can be a night watchman and be happy. So I'm not suggesting that you should have a low profession and all that, but to be happy, you need not be a CEO. And it is not. I'm not sure whether CEOs are really happy. So a night watchman can be very happy. So the outer life is not very important when it comes to the inner happiness. The inner discovery, you have to discover the truth in yourself, in the depths of your being. You have to discover the truth. Then, irrespective of what goes around, in prosperity as well as in adversity, you can remain at peace and the mind can remain serene and quiet in all situations. So that secret of happiness, that is the real success. That secret of success you have to discover in yourself. Ramayana is the way. But then Ramayana is too big. 6 volumes. Balakanda, Ayodhyakanda, Aranyakanda, Kishkindhakanda, Sundarakanda and Yuddhakanda. 6 volumes, not 7. 7th is an extrapolation. It's an edition which came much later. In some medieval times it came. Ramayana is, if you ask me for some academic information, Ramayana is considered at least 7,500 years old, whereas Uttarakanda is not more than 600, 700, 800 years old. It is added later. Therefore, forget about Uttarakanda. 6 kandas, that is the Ramayana, and that is too big for you to go through now. But if you can get hold of a good book with a proper translation and read it, you can finish it. That can be a great achievement in life. So, but at least you focus on Sundara Kanda, the most beautiful volume in the 6 volumes of Ramayana, Sundara. Sundara means to gain what you have lost. That is called Sundara. Nashtavastu labhaha Sundara ityuchyate. So, if you have lost the secret of life, that is what you gain by focusing on Sundara Kanda. But then, even Sundara Kanda is quite big with 69 cantos or chapters. So you need some strength of Sanskrit also. Therefore, we are coming to the essence, a distillation process. Started with Ramayana 6 volumes, came to Sundarakanda, first level of distillation. And then distill a second time. You get 4 verses, which are the proclamation of Hanuman to the Rakshasas of the Lanka. We are living in Lanka. Samsara is called Lanka. Lanka stands for Samsara. It is all metaphorical. And in the Samsara there are Rakshasas, competition, ambition, pursuit of pleasures, and then people come in the way, adversaries, enemies. These are all Rakshasas. And sometimes the Rakshasas are inside you. Desires, anger, frustration, sorrow, and then fear, worry, anxiety. These are the Rakshasas inside you. You need to conquer all these Rakshasas. And Hanuman proclaims to all these Rakshasas. You too can join Hanuman in this proclamation. Address it to the Rakshasas. Rakshasas around, Rakshasas the demons around and also within. And see, put an idol of Hanuman and start worshipping, that is one thing. But then when it comes to Ramayana, you have to associate yourself with Hanuman and worship Rama. Rama, the God in the heart. Atma Ramaha, that is the Rama. Ramaha, Atma Rama Eva, that is the Rama. And that Rama you have to worship as the Hanuman. And so you take yourself as the Hanuman. Sundarakanda is understood when you connect yourself with Hanuman. And Bhagavad Gita is understood when you connect yourself with Arjuna. That is the context. So you are the Hanuman, in a way. I am the Hanuman. You should be able to say that. So, Buddhir Balam Yasho Dhairyam Nirbhayatva Marogata Ajaryam Vakpatutvancha Hanumat Smaranad Bhavet. Some Sanskrit verse. But again, the way I chanted or recited, you must be able to make out the meaning. So, understanding. And once there is understanding, there will be good health. Good. If somebody is not healthy, that means his understanding is missing somewhere. So, education restores health, Therefore, the understanding, then physical strength, and then fearlessness, nirbhayatva, arogata, the good health, arogyam, that is the good health. And then ajadyam means freedom from senility in the old age, freedom from laziness and inadvertence when you are young and in the middle age. That is called ajadyam. And then all that you gain by connecting to Hanuman. Hanumat Smaranad Bhavet. Hanuman, the way you have to understand is, so Lanka is the samsara. And who has conquered Lanka? Not Rama. Hanuman has conquered Lanka. So, how he conquered? So, Tirtva Moharnavam. He has leapt across, the leaping across he was leaping across the ocean. I said left. If I say left, whether you will get it or not, therefore I am saying leaping. So he was leaping across the ocean. What is the ocean? Confusion, moha, confusion, misapprehension, misconception. Means you fail to understand things properly. And then you have some problem with the teeth, you put medicine for the tummy. That is kind of moha, confusion. And so the teeth problem will continue to remain the same, and some new problem will come to the tummy. So this is how people live. Okay? So confused. People are a confused lot. People means who are the people? Not from some other colony. We are the people. Therefore, that confusion, that is the that makes us suffer in life. And when you connect with Hanuman, so you gain that understanding, which makes you happy and healthy. So you have to connect that way. You have to understand what Hanuman is trying to say. Hanuman, he was leaping across the ocean of confusion. Confusion is an ocean. The person is confused in the childhood, which is all right. In the youth also he is confused. Okay, let us forgive him there also. But in the middle age also he is confused, and in the old age also he is confused, and about to die also confused. Now how can it be? That is something, a serious problem. Therefore, the confusion, misconception, failure to understand the thing correctly, failure to understand life correctly. So that leads to a lot of suffering in life. So that confusion is the ocean. And Hanuman leaps across that ocean. And you be that Hanuman. So, Tirtva Moharnam. Then Hanuman has slain a number of demons, Rakshasas. What are the Rakshasas? Hatva Kamakrodhadi Rakshasam. So the desires, and then fear, anger, frustration, and so then inadvertence. These are the Rakshasas, Tamoguna. These Rakshasas, these demons who are ruling the roost in the mind and heart in our life, they have to be slain. Means they have to be put aside, driven away by understanding. Hanuman stands for understanding. Jnana. Jaya Hanuman. Jnana Guna Sagara. Jnana. Hanuman is not for fighting only. Your fighting will come later. People Bajranga Bali, Vajranga. So that is, you give importance to the body, but then you should give importance to the mind. First mind. So Hanuman is not Vajranga to begin with. Hanuman is Jnana Guna Sagara to begin with. He is the repository of understanding. Jnana is knowledge or understanding, and then the divine qualities, that is the guna, which are enumerated in Gita, etc. That is Hanuman. And that's why in prayers also, Manojavam Marutatulyavegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtham. Hanuman is one of the greatest of the scholars. Hanuman stands for knowledge and wisdom. That is how Hanuman was introduced in Ramayana. People think that Hanuman was introduced as Hare Ram, Hare Ram. That is not how he was introduced doing bhajan in Kishkindha Kanda. So Hanuman was introduced. Hanuman comes to meet Rama and Lakshmana for the very first time. Then Lakshmana has a word or two with him. Then Rama tells Lakshmana. He doesn't tell Hanuman. Rama tells Lakshmana, hey Lakshmana, I heard him talking with you a few words. I understand that he is one of the greatest of scholars in this forest. What a strange coincidence that we come across one of the finest intellects that I have ever seen. That is how Rama introduces Hanuman to Lakshmana. Even before he talked a word with Hanuman. That is what Hanuman is. Hanuman, I have to say this with some emphasis because Hanuman is understood as like a King Kong or boxer. That is the popular idea of Hanuman. That is not entirely appropriate. Hanuman is strong physically, but can anybody be strong physically unless the mind is strong? Is it possible? Not possible. Therefore, that is the Hanuman. And he proclaims his glory, rather the glory of Rama, to these Rakshasas in Lanka. So he comes to Lanka, leaping across the ocean, he comes to Lanka in the story. And then while he is leaping across the ocean, in between the ocean there was a beautiful resort, a hill resort, Mainaka. All pleasures of a resort are made available to him and he can relax there. Then what about Sita? Sita will wait where she will. And Lanka, Ravana, Sita, we will see all that. First this resort is there. Hanuman politely, not in a condescending way, politely puts aside that invitation. Mainaka's invitation, he politely puts aside. That is the Indriya Nigraha. So he has the perfect command over the organs of the sense organs and organs of action. So then he arrives in Lanka. Sita Shanti Mupadaya. He searches for happiness in the world. That is Lanka. World is a Lanka. So suppose it is a very rich locality, very advanced country and a very highly developed society, suppose. That means highly developed Lanka. Only that much. Just because there is a tremendous technological development, that doesn't make Lanka into Alanka. Alanka means non-Lanka. It continues to be Lanka. And therefore continue to haunt the people, make people unhappy. That is the Lanka. And he searches Lanka for happiness. That is what we are all doing sometime or the other, to some extent or a larger extent. We all search the world for happiness. And we fail miserably. Because the world doesn't have happiness to give to us. If it has, it can give, probably. But it doesn't have. World can give to us only two things, sorrow and fear, nothing else. Whereas happiness is inside you as Atma, which is Rama. That is the Atma Rama, that is the seat of happiness. So to gain that happiness, you have to discover that happiness inside you. For that you need a Shanti. Inner quiet. Mind should be quiet. To understand anything, mind should be quiet. Mind should not be like a devil's workshop. When the mind is restless, such a mind which is restless and agitated is a sick mind. Hyperactivity of the mind, that is what we cultivate. We start with cell phone, smartphone, and then social networking, which is very anti-social, really speaking, and then so many other things. All of this, what is it doing to your mind? It is putting your mind on a roller coaster, and you take it as a rule. A hyperactive mind is a disease, and you need what all we need, not some more money, not some more pleasures, not even some more rituals, not even some more worships. You are already doing enough worships. Not even some more charity, not even some more pilgrimage. But then you need a little understanding and then the consequent shanti, quiet. You see, in the temples they distribute prasadam and they have a kitchen to make prasada. And the prasada, in Sanskrit, prasada is not a sweet ball. That is not the meaning of prasada. That has become the meaning, but really speaking, prasada means inner quiet and cheerfulness. You are quiet and cheerful, put together. Not quiet and grumpy, not that. Quiet and unhappy, not that quiet. That is tamoguna. So quiet and cheerful, both put together, is called prasada. Another name for it is shanti. And Sita stands for that shanti. Sita, that's why Sita is an Ashoka Vana. Don't you see the connection? Is it not obvious, the metaphor? Sita is not in Lanka. Sita is in Ashoka forest. She is in forest. So it is Grama versus Vana. Vana versus Grama is Indriya Gramaha. the group of Indriyas which binds you. Whereas Vana is Brahma. Kenopanishad, Vana is Brahma. Vanamityupasva. So the forest, so where you have that quiet, not physical forest, that heart which has that quiet, that is the Vana, that is Brahma. And so that quiet, Sita stands for that quiet, and Prasada stands for that quiet. From now on, whenever you put some prasada in your mind, in your mouth, please remember this. Prasada. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirashyopajayate. So prasada, you go to Gita and find out what is prasada. That is the real prasada. The physical prasada is only a symbol of that real prasada. Therefore, so you take that prasada, Sita Shanti. So you discover, you have to discover it. Sita is there. And where is she? She is in the Vana, which is free from sorrow. Ashoka Vana. We don't say Ashoka Aranya. We say Ashoka Vana. Aranya has another significance. Vana is a Upanishadic expression. Even Aranya is also Upanishadic expression. The heart in which there is no conflict, there is no struggle, there is no adversity, that heart, there is not even a particle of adversity or opposition or hatred in the heart. That heart is called Aranya. That is also Upanishadic. Chandogya. Vana is Upanishadic. Kena. So that is the Ashoka Vana. Very significant. That is where Sita is. Sita is associated with Ashoka and Vana, which is Brahma. And Ashoka and Vana are associated with Sita. They are mutual. Therefore, Hanuman discovers Shanti. You and me, we are the Hanuman. And you discover the Shanti, means you have discovered the Sita. Atma Ramaha Virajate. Then you shine brilliantly in total merger with Atma, which is Ramaha. That is the verse. That verse is not given to you. I am coming to the verses given to you. So when we started, 6 we started. Another 20-25 minutes time is there. We will come to this mantra. But this I have explained the symbolism or the metaphor associated with Hanuman, Sita, Lanka, Rakshasas, and the ocean, leaping across the ocean. All of that I have explained in one single verse. So, Tirtva Moharnavam Hatva Kamakrodhadi Rakshasan Sita Shanti Mupadaya Atma Ramo Virajate. Rama is shining brilliantly in the heart as the innermost self. And so that is the story of essence of the story of Hanuman. And Hanuman proclaims the glory of Rama to the Rakshasas of the Lanka in these 4 verses. You may say with me, you all seem to have the verses with you. Jayatyati Balo Ramo Lakshmanascha Mahabalaha Raja Jayati Sugrivo Raghavena Bhipalitaha. That is the first verse. He proclaims Rama the Supreme. See, it is like going to a Pentagon. If not Pentagon, go to some other seat of terrific power and declare Rama, declare India, Sindoor is the Supreme. You look at that. So he goes to the very seat of Ravana, and who is most powerful in Lanka? Ravana should be the most powerful. He says Rama is the most powerful, not Ravana. Go to the very home of the enemy or adversary and declare the victory. That is Hanuman. You have to make some such declaration in the heart towards the enemies of Kama, Krodha, etc. So anyway, so Atibalo Rama, Hanuman and Hanuman alternate, both are equally correct. So Hanuman, he doesn't proclaim himself to begin with, I am so and so. He doesn't say that. He talks of his Lord. You can say Master or Lord, Rama, the most powerful. He is shining brilliantly. Jayati. Sarvotkarshaya virajate. That is the meaning of Jayati. Not that he is fighting and winning. There is no fight, no win. That will come later. So he is shining brilliantly. Ramaha. Most powerful. What about Lakshmana? Lakshmanascha Mahabalaha. Lakshmana, you see, when you think of Lakshmana, you think of Rama. That is like Lakshmana is Lakshana. That which shows the real, that is Lakshmana. So where will you find Rama? Did you notice Lakshmana? Yes, I found him. There Rama will be there. Lakshmana is Lakshana. And so Lakshmana is also equally powerful. And then the king Sugriva, who happens to be a good friend of Rama now, not only strategic friend, but the friend of the heart, that is Sugriva. And Rama has blessed Sugriva already. You see, Rama entered into a friendship treaty with Sugriva. And who is the most beneficiary of that friendship? Sugriva, first. Rama has to get benefit still. He has to find Sita and fight a battle with Ravana and all that. Sugriva has to help him. All that will come later. But the first thing is, the moment friendship is sealed, Sugriva is made the king. The enemy was slain and Sugriva is made the king. You see, suppose we meet a person and become friend with him. Talk a few words, you become friends. Saptapadinam Saksham. Saptapadinam. So 7 words you speak, you become friends. Or take 7 steps together, you become friends. And the moment there is friendship, you should not look for what can I get out of him. That is not the way to look. What can I give to him? That is Rama. You have to learn from Rama. So having entered into a friendship treaty, Rama has done his part of the deal first. That is, make Sugriva the emperor of the kingdom of Kishkindha. That is how Rama has protected Sugriva. And today, Sugriva is the king of Kishkindha. Hanuman is saying, today means in Hanuman's words, Sugriva is ruling the Kishkindha and he is very well protected by Rama. Okay? You chant Rama, the sacred name of Rama, Griva, sacred name you chant. You need not chant with a big loud voice and all that. You need not chant in a big mic and all that. You chant within yourself, mentally or verbally in a whispering tone. Then that Rama will protect you. You become the Sugriva. So that is how the verse has to be understood. The first verse is over. Next verse. दासोऽहं कोसलेन्द्रस्य रामस्याक्लिष्टकर्मणः हनुमान् शत्रुसैन्यानाम् निहन्ता मारुतात्मजः. You see, our friend Vaidyanathan has introduced me this Swami. Now I ask you, did he introduce this Swami or did he introduce the great Acharyas with whom Swami has learnt a few things? Whom did he introduce? The Acharyas he introduced. Did you notice that? So in that sense, the introduction has some relevance. So Hanuman, he is now introducing himself. Having first introduced Rama, Lakshmana and Sugriva, now he says, here I am, Aham, Hanuman. Hanuman is same as Hanuman. Dirgham and Harasvam, both are equally correct. In the verse though, it is Dirgham. And I am Hanuman, Hanuman. Dasaha is not servant. That is the meaning given, unfortunately, by people who do not pay much attention to these things. They make it a kind of a storytelling kind of thing without putting a lot of thinking into it. And so they come out with a servant. And so what happens? Be servile, that makes you a good devotee. That is the impression you get. That is how it is presented also before the people. So people, they don't pay much attention. They take whatever comes their way. And so people believe, I should be servile, I should be slave, servile, then I will be a good devotee. Devotion is not servitude. If you are helpful to the preceptor, that is not servitude, not out of servitude. Dasaha means, if you check the meaning changes as the time goes on. From generation to generation, the words change. The words, for example, in chemistry there is a word inflammable, means that which catches fire quickly. Now when you come to America, when I came to America, I found that they dropped that in. They don't say inflammable. We used to say inflammable and uninflammable. We used to say like that. These people, they are very intelligent. They dropped that in. You don't need in. Flammable, non-flammable. So you see words, how they change. One immediate example which came to my mind I gave you. Words change. The meanings change. Dasaha in Ramayana is attendant. When Rama was living at the outskirts of Kishkindha city, he won't come within the city. He remains in the forest adjoining the city. And then he was living in a cave. Make some arrangement to lie down in a cave, that is where he was living. It was rainy season. He needs some shelter on his roof, a roof on his head. Some shelter he needs, and that shelter is a cave in the mountain. And so he needs somebody to fetch a few things like fruits, etc. for eating. And if any need is there, somebody should be there to fetch these things. And so Sugriva asked Hanuman, you take care of Rama, attend to him. That is what the job given to Hanuman. And therefore, Hanuman is not a servant. He was attendant. That is the meaning of Dasaha. If you see the Sanskrit dictionary, Aptes dictionary, you will find Dasaha is attendant, not servant, not slave. Servant, servility, slave, they do not prove devotion. Devotion, only one thing proves devotion, that is love. Love is devotion, not servitude. Because, so ativinayam dhorta lakshanam. The more servile a person is, the more desires, etc. he has. So anyway, I made a big deal about it. Dasaha attendant. That way you have to take. Not what happened is in the Bhakti literature of 17th, 18th, 19th centuries, the word dasa has acquired a new undesirable meaning. That is all I wanted to say. So I am the attendant of Rama. Now Rama is a vagabond. That is what Ravana said to Sita. He is a vagabond. He is a hobo, not hobo. He is a hippie kind of a person moving around, not having anything. No, Rama is the king of Kosala kingdom in exile. That is the king, in exile. Like in Second World War, he said Second World War. In Second World War, de Gaulle was the president of France in exile. He had his office in London. Okay. So during the occupation of the France by Germany. So that is how Rama, not exactly that way. Rama is the king of Kosala. Then what about Bharata? Bharata is the representative of Rama. You know all that? Therefore, Rama is not somebody who is banished to the forest or etc. The king, Kosalendrasya, Ramasya. So Sugriva is the king of Kishkindha. Rama is the king of the Kosala kingdom. That is what Rama is. And Rama is called Aklishta Karmanaha. Aklishta Karma means he is capable of performing an act easily, make it appear very easy and simple, whereas the act is the most difficult. Aklishta Karmanaha. That is the meaning of Aklishta Karmanaha. You tell me, renouncing the kingdom, the anointing ceremony, all the comforts of the emperor's palace, the dear wife, to begin with, he was renouncing everything. He is planning to go to forest alone. Sita has pushed herself, and so she pushed him that way. That came later, but when he renounced, so he renounced the beloved wife, married only a few years back. Years are not months, 2-3 years I suppose. So, giving up. And friends, Rama had many good friends in the city of Ayodhya as the prince, and he has to renounce all of that, and he has to go to some God-forsaken forest. What is there? There is nothing. And that was the demand put upon him. You know how much time he took to say yes? Jiffy. Jiffy, you know, Jiffy is a fraction of a second. Jiffy is defined also. Jiffy is the time taken by light to travel a distance of 1 centimeter. So that is not a time at all. It is not even a fraction of a second. Fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second. That is the time. He said, Badham. Yes. No hesitation in giving up. And by the time he gave up, it appeared very simple. There is no big deal about it. He just walked away from everything. That is called Aklishta Karmana. Whereas sometimes a beggar comes, whether I give 1 rupee or half rupee or 1/4, a dime I will give or 2 cents I will give, think like that. And then we struggle. And then finally pick up a coin and put into his ball. Just I am telling the opposite how it looks like. Whereas Rama, Aklishta Karmanaha, Aklishta Karma Prathama, Karmanaha Shashti. So he is the one who made the renunciation of the highest kind, the greatest ever renunciation, look very simple. That is how he is in his life. Ramasya Klishta Karmanaha. So I am his attendant. And take care. I will destroy the armies of the enemy, not one army. So a division comes. Ravanasura sends a division, means a group of warriors or fighters, soldiers, and Hanuman destroys the division. one more division comes, he destroys that. Not individual soldiers. Entire divisions were destroyed totally by Hanuman in the battle. That is how he is. Shatru Sainyanan Nihanta. And I have all my power. That is not my glory. It is the glory of the Vayu Devata, Marutatmajaha. Ramayana leans towards Vedas, Rigveda. Ramayana to Rigveda. Mahabharata to Puranic literature. That is how the epics they evolved. So in Rigveda, the most important devata, one of the many devatas are nature's forces, like a river devata, Mississippi devata, Tennessee devata, Ganga devata, Kaveri devata, then the wind devata, the fire devata, the sun devata, the moon devata. These are the devatas worshipped by the rishis in the Vedic times. Therefore, Vayu is the devata, wind god, the most important among the gods. Vayurvai kshepishtha devata, Vayumeva svena bhagadheye nopadhavati. Like that, the Vedic hymns are also there. Among all devatas, most powerful and the moving with the tremendous speed and power, who is that devata? Vayu devata. Florida, you go to Florida, you will find hurricanes. That is the Vayu devata. And so, I am born by the blessing of Vayu devata. The power of Vayu devata is in me. Take care. Khamadgar. That is what he said. Next verse. That is how he introduces himself. Naravana sahasram me Yuddhe pratibalam bhavet Shilabhischa praharataha Padapaischa sahasrashaha. You have to conquer Ravana to gain Sita. That is the situation. Unless you vanquish Ravana in the battle, you cannot gain Sita. That is the deal. And so he is declaring, Rama is not needed to defeat Ravana. I am enough. I can defeat not one Ravana, 1,000 Ravanas I can defeat. Rama need not come here. What Rama has to do, I can do it. Even 1,000 Ravanas cannot stand equal to me in the battlefield. That is the truth in life. I ask you, you have arrived at this point in life, how many calamities and problems of life you have faced successfully till now? Tell me. You must have faced quite a few. Quite a large number of problems and real calamities. That this is the adversity that will end my life. And there is no way out of this adversity. That kind of desperation and helplessness, hopelessness. How many times you must have faced? Everybody must have faced. So many times. And you have come out successfully from every one of them. And you are sitting here in the Ramayana class. Right? What does it prove to you? You are the Hanuman. And even 1,000 adversities cannot defeat you. Know it and be brave about that. No adversity can defeat you. Only you can defeat yourself. No adversity can ever defeat you. Suppose adversity has the power to defeat you, you would not have come to this point in life. The fact that you have arrived in Phoenix and you are sitting in this class after so many years of life from childhood onwards shows that you have that power in yourself. That is the power of Hanuman which is with you. Only you have to discover it. It is covered by ignorance, non-recognition, inadvertence. So you have to discover it. And you have to connect yourself with Hanuman. So he says, even 1,000 Ravanas can stand before me. I will defeat all of them and stand victorious. Then what are the implements that you have? How many implements that you have? You see, I tell you, at least in chemistry, we used to feel jealous of some of the American laboratories, Western laboratories, because the laboratories are very, very highly, very sophisticated, very well built, well equipped, very sophisticated laboratories here. Because it's an advanced country, Europe, Western Europe is also like that. Then compare with Indian universities and laboratories, very poorly equipped. We don't have a proper vacuum pump also. So we need to struggle this way, that way. And, but the quality of research is not inferior. Got the point? So without having elaborate equipment and facilities and implements and all that, still some very good research could be done. So where from that power came? So a person is not so much empowered by outer paraphernalia or facilities and comforts as the inner strength of the mind. If you have that inner strength of the mind, whatever be the outer facilities and comforts, however less they may be, or even non-existent, still you will prevail and you will prove victorious. There is a saying like that, Kriya Siddhis Sattve Bhavati Mahatam Nopakarane. Compare Rama and Ravana. Rama has no implements, he doesn't even have a chariot. Ravana has the best possible army of the times. But finally Rama prevailed. Rama won the battle. That is how it happens. So therefore, I don't have weapons, arrows and bows and arrows. I don't have other spear kind of weapons, axe, spear, sword. All these weapons are used by the armies of Ravana. I don't have any weapons. Then with which weapons you are going to defeat all these armies? With stones and dry pieces of wood from the forest. If you go to the forest, some trees which are broken and fallen, you find. Pick up one of them and beat the enemy with it. That is how I will win. The enemy may come with guns and machine guns, etc. Doesn't matter. I will prevail. You got the point? So my weapons are stones and broken branches of the trees. They are available plenty of stones. You may not have many swords, but I have many stones to beat you. That is what is Shilavischa Praharataha Padapaischa Sahasrashaha. Okay. You see, somebody had a gun. And he was put the gun under the pillow and he was sleeping. Then the thief came and he has stolen everything. This man woke up but forgot about the gun. Then the next day, what did you do? You kept the gun, you could have shown the gun to the thief, he would run away. I forgot about the gun. So therefore it is not the gun which protects a person. It is the knowledge, understanding, courage coming born out of understanding. That courage, not some foolhardiness. The courage born out of knowledge. That is the real weapon to defeat the enemy of the vicissitudes of life. That is the weapon. And so Hanuman represents that weapon in his statement. So this is the weapon and this weapon is enough for me. These very rudimentary or very inadequate weapons, but still I will win against the enemy. See, sometimes in life we face such a situation. We may not be having a lot of wealth to support our efforts, or sometimes when the health is not good, we may not have a lot of money to get the best possible treatment and all that. Yet, with courage, determination, understanding, love, devotion to the higher power, sense of surrender to the higher power, these are the weapons with which you defeat this disease. That the spirit should be there. Medicine alone doesn't cure the disease. Inner strength cures the disease with or without medicine. Therefore, that is how Hanuman represents the inner strength, the power of the Atma. Atma, the power of Atma is the supreme, really. Final verse. I am conscious of the time, so I was suggested that 1 hour 15 minutes. So with the final verse we will conclude it. Ardayitva purim lankam abhivadya cha maithilim samruddhartho gamishyami mishatam sarvarakshasam. So this is the fourth and final verse in the proclamation of victory. I will destroy the Lanka, the city of Lanka. So this, like samsara is the Lanka. This samsara, with all its challenges, cannot defeat me. I will defeat it. Then the Sita, Shanti. You see, where is Shanti? Where there is a Shanti, there only there is Shanti. Where there is Lanka, there only Ashokavana is there. It's not that suffering is in this world, happiness is in the other world. It is not like that. Suffering is here. If you understand correctly, happiness is also here. So, Sita is in Lanka only. So, I will defeat this Lanka, the worldliness. Lanka stands for the worldliness, attachment to the worldly things, etc. That is the Lanka, and I will defeat it. Then Maithili, see, Mithila Nagara Vasini, the princess of Mithila, that is Maithili. Mithila is a very special thing. Mithila town has another name, Videha Nagari. That is Mithila. Vaidehi, you know. Videha is what? Non-identification with the physical body. That is Videha. That is Videha. Identification with the body is death. Non-identification with the body is freedom and liberation. That is Videha. And so the king of Videha, Janaka, the great Jnani, and Sita happens to be his daughter. She represents the peace and quiet of Jnana. That is the Maithili. So, I will prostrate unto Maithili that fulfills my mission. Samruddhartha. The mission will be fulfilled by that. By the time I teach a lesson to the people of Lanka who have supported the Ravana in capturing Sita and keeping her in that forest away from Rama, so in imprisoning her in that Ashokavana. So I will teach a lesson to all of these people and also to Ravana. And then I will take leave from Sita. That finishes my mission completely. I would accomplish what all I need to accomplish in this mission. And then that is called Samruddhartha. Then I will go back to Rama. But then while going back, maybe the Rakshasas will come, where they raise their head one more time and stop you in the way, and they can still bother you. No, they cannot do anything to me. Once I have seen Sita and understood that inner quiet Shanti, and I have become a devotee of the Atma Rama. Now the Rakshasas, the demons, the difficulties of life, the adversities, etc. of life cannot do anything to me. I am giving the metaphorical meaning also simultaneously, you are following that. They cannot defeat me. You see, once you have conquered the covetousness, not one particular desire, you become desireless. Not by conquering a desire here, a desire there. The very covetousness you give up, that makes you desireless. Once you become desireless, this world can do nothing to you. Once you become fearless, desirelessness leads to fearlessness. This world will salute before you. And fearlessness, desirelessness and fearlessness are godliness. Therefore, the world, its evils, its bad things, the Rakshasa, that is the Rakshasas, they cannot do anything to me. I will conquer and reach the sacred abode of Lord Rama. That is the final. So this is the Vijaya Mahamantra. I would recommend that you say one more time so that you become familiar with it. Now that you know the meaning also. Jayat Jati Balo Ramo Lakshmanascha Mahabalaha Raja Jayati Sugrivo Raghavena Bhipalitaha Dasoham Kosalendrasya Ramasyatvishtakarmanaha Hanuman Shatru Sainyanam Nihanta Marutatmajaha Naravana Sahasram Me Yuddhe Pratibalam Bhavet Shilabhischa Praharataha Adapaischa Sahasrashaha Ardayitva Purim Lankam Abhivadya Cha Maithilim Samruddhartho Gamishyami Nishatam Sarvarakshasam. Those of you who know Telugu must have heard of Tyagaraja. There is a song composed by Tyagaraja, Indedi Ramudokkade. There is Rama alone. Rama alone is. Everything else is unreal. Rama alone is real. Orake chedipoke manasa. So mind, don't destroy yourself, don't spoil yourself by running into the mirage of worldly pleasures. Orake chedipoke manasa. And then he connects the Rama with the Gayatri mantra. He says, very interesting. He says, Chanda Martanda Madhyamandalamuna Chalaguchu Undedi Ramudu. Rama, the Rama alone is shining in the solar orb the most brilliantly. And the same Rama is here as Atma Rama. That is the Gayatri Mantrartha, which I have incorporated in the meditation. If you pay attention, you may listen to it one more time. So Tamasadi Gunarahitudu, Dharmatmudu, Sarvasamudu, that is the Atma. So Gayatri Mantrartha is included in that. So the Tamasa Guna, identification with the body. Rajoguna, identification with the mind. Sattva Guna, identification with the intellect. You go beyond all the gunas. And then you love all, one in all. The same God in every human heart. Dharmatmudu, you live a life of righteous conduct. Sarva Samudu, the one who sees the same God in all. That is the Atma. What is shining in the solar orb is shining here. That I have described adequately. You pay attention to that meditation. You do that prayer or meditation, one and the same, daily at least once. All your anxieties and sorrows and adversities in life are certainly will be put aside, and you will prevail, you will emerge victorious. May God bless you all. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I forgot to tell you, I am introducing a Ramayana scholar to you. That is Vaidyanatha. It is up to you.